And today, the only way we're going to keep winning these battles today is by keep showing them our democratic muscle. And that's what you guys are coming out here today and doing.
For their violations of law. They regularly turn a blind eye to illegal pollution and damage that happens during construction, operation, and maintenance of the pipeline projects. As far as we know, F.E.R.C has never once imposed a penalty for violations by the pipeline industry during construction, operation, and maintenance. They don't even issue stop work orders to force these pipeline companies to come into compliance with the law and clean up their mess before they continue business as usual. And the fact of the matter is, why would F.E.R.C hold the pipeline companies accountable for their illegal acts when manipulations and violations of law are routine for F.E.R.C itself?
Yes.
F.E.R.C routinely allows pipeline projects to go to construction without all required permits from all required agencies. It is F.E.R.C standard operating procedure to strip people like us of our legal rights and ability to challenge pipeline projects in the courts before F.E.R.C sends them to construction. It is business as usual for F.E.R.C to strip states of their right, their legal right to say no to a pipeline project before F.E.R.C advances it to construction. But we are all here today to say no more! No more! We, the people, have rights, and we are standing together today to defend those rights. And the fact of the matter is, because of the irreparable harm the Constitution pipeline would inflict on the water resources of the state of New York, we have the legal right, even under the pathetic set of laws that are out there for pipeline projects, we have the legal right to say no to the Constitution pipeline.
F.E.R.C doesn't work! 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 F.E.R.C doesn't work!
F.E.R.C doesn't work!
1,000 jobs.
You know, when somebody says F.U. to you, you know that they're trying to deliver a message of aggression, of intense aggression. Well, the gas drillers and the pipeline companies have taken F.U. to a whole new level.
This crisis down. I hear the voice of my great-granddaughter. I hear the voice of my great-granddaughter saying, shut this pipeline down. Saying, shut this pipeline down.
And first up, we have Winona Howder, who's the... Now, I just wrote a book about the history of the oil and gas industry, and I can tell you where there are pipelines, there are always leaks, massive spills, and horrific explosions. Yes. That is the history of the pipeline industry. And there is very, very lax oversight. There are no construction standards. there is no monitoring. There are no government checkups. The oil and gas industry and the pipeline corporations, they do everything on the cheap. That's why since between 1994 and 2014, there were 11,000 pipeline accidents. The oil and gas industry just considers this the cost of doing business. Fines and settlements are just put in their budget. The Constitution is going to cross 277 bodies of water. And there's a lot of new evidence that when pipelines are built under riverbeds and creek beds, that floodwaters, especially in light of climate change, the weight and the speed of floodwaters erode the bottom of the river and expose the pipeline, leading to ruptures. We've seen a number of serious accidents. Governor Cuomo's Department of Conservation actually wrote about this threat in a letter to F.E.R.C. Did F.E.R.C listen to New York State? No, of course not. The truth of the matter is, if Governor Cuomo doesn't say no to the Constitution pipeline, it's like signing a death order for New York's water. It is time to keep fossil fuels in the ground.
Yes!
And let's remember how fracking was banned in New York. It was years of your relentless organizing, your tireless energy, your demands. That's how fracking was banned. We can do the same with fracking infrastructure. Let's put our minds to it. Let's be single-minded. Let's put aside personality disputes. Put aside differences of opinion on tactics. Let's be an army focused on stopping the Constitution and all of the other pipelines. Stop the pipeline. Stop the pipeline. Stop the pipeline.
Stop.
We can do it. On to the clean energy revolution.
What Henry and Winona said about the Constitution pipeline is true. It is a surrogate for what's happening across this industry, where they understand that this is a tired, dinosaur, expired business model.
That's right.
The only way that they can stay in business for the next 2 decades, 3 decades, or generation is by hardening their infrastructure today and getting the pension funds and the banks and the investment houses and the governments invested in these new pipelines and pump stations and storage facilities and LNG facilities, so that we get locked in and you have all of these powerhouses around the country that now are invested in making sure there's gas flowing through that pipeline, even when it doesn't make any economic sense anymore. And what these people will say to you is that, well, you know, you have the environmentalists out here. We have to choose between prosperity and progress on the one hand and environmental protection on the other. And that is a false choice. In 100% of the situations, good environmental policy is identical to good economic policy. If we want to measure the economy, and this is how we ought to be measuring it, based upon how it produces jobs and the dignity of jobs over the generations, over the long term, and how it preserves the value of the assets of our community. If, on the other hand, we want to do what Cabot wants us to do, which is to treat Susquehanna County and Schoharie County and Delaware County and the Catskill Mountains and Pennsylvania and Massachusetts and Connecticut and New York State as if they were a business in liquidation, convert our natural resources to cash as quickly as possible, have a few years of pollution-based prosperity, we can generate the illusion of prosperity by making a few billionaires richer. And our children are going to pay for their joyride. And they're going to pay for it with denuded landscapes and poor health and huge cleanup costs and drowned cities, as Winona said, and a melted Arctic and disappeared species. And we are going to impoverish the next generation by making these people prosperous. And that is not a good choice. And the only way that this makes no economic sense, and you know what this pipeline is about. This is not about making America a better place. This is about enriching a few billionaires and the shareholders of these companies. And the only way that they can get away with this is not by competing in free market economy, but by capturing the agencies that are supposed to protect the rest of us from pollution. And anywhere you see large-scale environmental injury of this scale, you'll also see the subversion of democracy. You'll see the corruption of public officials. You'll see the disappearance of local democracy, of zoning laws and planning laws. Why can't, this is America. It's supposed to be the template for local democracy. Why is it that a town in the Catskills cannot zone out a pipeline? Why do they have to accept that? It is the subversion of democracy, the only thing that makes this possible. And of course, the capture of the agencies that are supposed to protect the rest of us from pollution. And F.E.R.C is the poster child for the captive agency phenomena. This is not a public agency. This is a sock puppet for the oil and gas industry. In the entire history of this agency, they have never, ever turned down a pipeline permit until this year. And that's because the water keepers on the West Coast got together and applied democracy against F.E.R.C. And we forced them for the first time in history to turn down a pipeline permit, and that's what we're going to do with this permit right here in New York State. I said, this industry makes no economic sense anymore. The only reason it makes sense is because they've been able to undermine free market capitalism by capturing the agency which designs the rules, that regulates and makes the rules for the energy industry in this country. So they make rules for they're handymen, they're indentured servants in this regulatory agency, make rules that govern the energy distribution in our country, and they write those rules with the oil companies standing over their back, and the rules are designed to favor the dirtiest, filthiest, most poisonous, most destructive, most addictive fuels from hell, rather than the cheap, clean, green, wholesome, and patriotic fuels from heaven. And we need to understand that we are not protecting these counties and these 277 waterways and the 100 acres of wetland and the hundreds of thousands of trees. We're not protecting those things for the sake of the fishes and the birds. We're protecting them for our own sake, because we recognize that nature is the infrastructure of our communities. And that if we want to meet our obligation as a generation, as a civilization, a nation, which is to create communities for our children and provide them with the same opportunities for dignity and enrichment and prosperity and good health as the communities that our parents gave us, we've got to start by protecting our environmental infrastructure. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the wildlife, the fisheries, the public lands, and the big environment, the Arctic, which is melting, the cities which are the places that we live that are going to be inundated and buried. And these people that are getting away with this are criminals. That's right. We know now that they've been lying to us for 40 years about global warming. Yes. Why are we even having this discussion? Why aren't we just putting them in jail where they belong? Alarmed by these insults, 20 million Americans came out onto the street, the largest public demonstration in American history, and they challenged the power of the big industrial polluters. And it scared the daylights out of our political leaders, in both Republican and Democratic Party. And as a result of that outpouring of democracy, over the next 10 years, we passed 28 environmental laws in this country, Republicans and Democrats. Nixon created EPA. He didn't want to do it. He did it because democracy made him do it. And today, the only way we're going to keep winning these battles today is by keep showing them our democratic muscle. And that's what you guys are coming out here today and doing.
You're here to change what government is doing to us. You're here, and we're not done yet. We had a bunch of good speakers, but we have to take this message from the Capitol down to the DEC. But first, we're going to circle the Capitol, because we are symbolizing the hope that we have for a better future. We're not sitting on our couch waiting for Trump or Hillary or Bernie or anybody else to decide what our future is. We're here to make it happen. So we're going to circle that Capitol. We're going to circle that Capitol to remind everybody in this building, it's a cool-looking building, but we're going to remind everybody in that building that it's our government. This is our government, and we're going to make it do the right thing.
As we walk down to the DEC, we're going to go there and we're going to elevate the energy with music.
People gonna rise like the water. Say shut them pipeline down. People gonna rise like the water. We're gonna calm this crisis down. Hear the voice of my great-granddaughter say shut this pipeline down. I hear the voice of my great-granddaughter say shut this pipeline down. People gonna rise like the water. They're gonna calm this crisis down.
For those of you who don't know, I'm Megan Holleran. I'm here today with my mother, Catherine Holleran. We're from northeastern Pennsylvania, where we own a beautiful property in New Milford in Susquehanna County in the path of the proposed Constitution pipeline. We operate a small family business there in North Hartford Maple, where we make maple syrup, and we've lived on that land since the 50s. My grandparents, my mother, my aunts and uncles, and now my brothers and I. And we've always been able to enjoy it. About a month ago, the Constitution pipeline came through and cleared our forest, over 3 acres of trees, including over 300 maples, which we used to use to produce syrup, and now we can't. They did this prior to any sort of permitting in New York State to clear trees from the F.E.R.C. They did it prior to having this 401 water quality certificate. They did it prior to being certain they were going to build the pipeline. And in fact, less than a week later, they announced that they were pushing back their in-service date until the middle of 2017, even though their right to eminent domain on our property was based on the fact that they would have this pipeline in service by this December. We are challenging that. We're here today because this 401 water quality certificate is about following rules. It's saying, here are the regulations that you have to follow to protect New York State's waterways. Our property is an example of Constitution Pipeline, Williams and Cabot, refusing to follow the rules, refusing to obey the regulations put in place to prevent exactly what happened on my property from happening, to prevent damage to our homes, to our land, to our environment, to our streams, to our forests. We have the perfect example of the fact that they just don't do that. They came out to our property with U.S. Marshals, armed with assault weapons and bulletproof vests. This is how they enforce their right to take what they want and do what they want, and there was literally nothing we could do to stop them. Despite the lack of permitting, despite the lack of permission, despite our extremely reasonable request to F.E.R.C. to delay the cutting until they were certain they were going to build the pipeline to delay irreparable harm to our home, to our business, to our land, to our forests, our trees, before they knew that they had to. And we were ignored. And instead they were given the power to come in with basically the military to do whatever they wanted on our home without us being able to stop them. So we're standing here. So here we stand in front of the DEC, in front of Governor Cuomo in Albany, where we still have a chance to put an end to this pipeline, to say, granting this certificate is not a guarantee that they will do what you've told them to do. Granting this certificate is not a guarantee your waterways will be protected. Granting this certificate is giving the pipeline one more rubber stamp and one more go-ahead to do whatever they want to our homes, our land, our environment, to our trees, to our forests, to our animals, to our future. Denying this certificate is taking back the power from these companies, the power that they have to run rampant over our landowners' rights, to run rampant over environmental regulation. Taking back that power and saying, we don't want this here. We don't need this. It's unnecessary and it causes irreparable damage that we'll never be able to fix. So we're here to ask Governor Cuomo and the DEC, deny this certificate, deny them the ability to build this pipeline, and protect your landowners, your homes, your forests, your water, your rivers, your animals, and our future for all of us. Thank you.
that buries a bomb on your private property. This is a fear my wife and I are unwilling to live with. Our so-called good neighbors, the Constitution Pipeline from corporate America, took our property, our dreams through eminent domain. They stole our liberties for privately owned land, our privacy and personal sense of security and safety. This taking of our land in Davenport, New York, forced us to abandon our dream that we, like Governor Andrew Cuomo's grandparents, and all of the affected landowners toiled a lifetime here in America to ensure.
The science is very compelling on climate change, but it's also much more than just science and economics. Climate change is about how we relate to each other over space and time, what we care about. It's about the meaning of life, not just the mechanics. There's another kind of knowledge that's very important. I want to thank Roger Jock for bringing that ancestral Mohawk knowledge. We're in the Waterfall Unity Alliance together. There's a knowledge that says that when we cannot live outside of the bounds of natural law. And we are living outside the bounds of the laws of nature. We're digging up and burning and putting pollution in the air faster than the earth can absorb it. We have to listen to that balance, and we have to understand that when if we're going to be in right relationship to the earth on the ground, then it's going to be in right relationship to the atmosphere. That's a lesson that we can learn from fracking and carry forward.
That solar energy was now so cheap that if he had $100 million to spend on a new power plant, he would not build gas, he would not build coal, he would build solar. Solely from a cost perspective.
You may have read in the New York Times this week that climate chaos is causing the West Antarctic ice sheet to melt, and by 2100 it's going to inundate New York City and a number of other coastal cities.
Governor Cuomo, we need you to make sure that New York and our communities and our natural resources don't get F.E.R.C'd by the Constitution Pipeline. And Governor Cuomo, we want you to make sure that F.E.R.C honors your denial of the Constitution Pipeline. Governor Cuomo, we are here today to say that we want you, we need you to champion our rights, to champion the rights of the state of New York, to champion the rights of all states across the nation, to say no to the devastation that pipeline projects bring to our communities.
We have come this far, we can't turn around. We'll flood the streets with justice, we are freedom bound. One more time. We have come this far, we can't turn around. We'll flood the streets with justice, we are freedom bound. We have come this far, we can't turn around. We'll flood the streets with justice, we are freedom bound.
Hi, welcome to the Climate Show here in Albany, New York. Filmmaker.
Now, let me talk about another issue where Secretary Clinton and I have some very significant differences, and that is the issue of fracking. And I want to congratulate the people of New York State for having the guts to tell the governor and the fossil fuel industry, you will not accept the poisoning of your water. In 2012, I was very proud that my state of Vermont became the first state we are seeing that movement proceed all across the country. The growing body of evidence tells us that fracking is a danger to our water supply, our most precious resource. We cannot poison our water. In my view, if we are serious about safe and clean water, and we must be serious about safe and clean water, we need to in every state of the country. It's not only poisoning our water. The threat of methane emissions from fracking presents a profound danger to our climate. This is above and beyond poisoning our water. As you know, methane traps more than 84 times the heat of carbon dioxide. While natural gas may burn cleaner than coal, the enormous explosion of fracking and the resulting release of methane presents a significant danger to our planet.